Hello and welcome to the Success Showcase. I'm your host, Eric Lopkin from the Modern Observer Group. And with me, as always, is Chip Janiszewski from the Happiness and Success GPS. Chip, how are you doing today?
Doing great. How about you, Eric?
Doing fantastic.
Happy holidays. They're here.
The holiday season is indeed here. We are a mere week away from Christmas. The year is winding down. And today we're going to talk about the holiday season and what you can learn from the holiday season to apply to your success.
Sounds like a good topic.
I always like it, and I think to start off with, we've talked about this quite a bit, but when you're talking about the holiday season, you really do have to talk about gratitude. We
Yeah,
talk
this is the time of year actually when gratitude it all of a sudden becomes foremost in people's minds, and it kind of douses some of the problems that people are having during the year because it is a season to reach out and count your blessings and that kind of thing. And people seem to be a little bit more cheery, except when they're in the Black Friday shopping lines and stuff like that. But it's a season of love. It's a season of kindness. It's a season of just counting blessings and that kind of thing, encouraging people. And one of the things that we talk about a lot in developing and maintaining a positive mindset is throwing out your automatic reaction bad habits, such as criticizing and judging and complaining and so on and so forth, and turning them around 100% into 180% into things such as appreciating people and encouraging people and supporting people and that kind of thing. And so, I mean, one of the things that you can learn from the holiday season is next time you are appreciating somebody or walking down the street looking at the joy and so on and so forth, get that feeling and think to yourself, how would it feel to feel like this the whole rest of the year? And it's your choice to do so. So that is a huge, huge thing to take away. I mean, gratitude is awesome, but it's also something that you can form a habit out of. And this is a great time of year to start.
right. People go out of their way this time of year to give people the benefit of the doubt, to look at the brighter side of things, to have that positive attitude. Now, imagine if you did that all year long.
Imagine what it would do for the world itself. Imagine if all of the headlines in the newspapers and started talking about great community service efforts and other great things that people are doing for other people in this world. Wouldn't it be cool if for one day they put the front page headlines on the back and put all of these great things that are going on in the world on the front, and then gave the world a survey as to how they felt about reading that kind of stuff? Would they like to see more? Now, you people listening out there, think about that. You know this is never going to happen, but what effect do you think that would have on you and everybody else out there if in fact this did happen? Would the world be a better place? Would you be a happier person? Would life be easier for you on a day to day basis? If you have an attitude of gratitude, I think you know that the answer is yes.
Right. And also, this time of year, people are in the spirit of giving. They have this attitude where they go out, they give to charity, they're looking for gifts, not just for themselves. And it's really a period of time where people are thinking of others first. And again, unfortunately, this period only seems to last about 6 weeks. But imagine if that continued. If you thought about what you could do for someone else, even if it was just a tiny little thing, but if once a day you did something that made somebody else's life better without thinking about a reward, without thinking about, what it was costing you or what it meant for you, just one little thing to make someone's life better.
Yeah, I mean, we talk about that as being unconditional giving, and that's what it's all about. And the bottom line is, you'll know if you're giving unconditionally, and if you are, and other people are benefiting from that, whether they tell you or not. you're feeling that little warm fuzzy right in your heart because that's where it's all coming from. And that's really what life is all about, is unconditional giving. And once you do that and get into an attitude and a habit of doing that, it's going to come back to you really twice for everyone that you do. It's going to be great for the person who's the recipient of what you do, but you're going to feel it too every single time you do it, and it's a wonderful feeling, and that's going to grow on you. And again, this is a fantastic time of year just to begin doing that. And as you said, it could just be a kind act towards somebody. A lot of times people will reach out and volunteer their time and make contributions and so on and so forth. But if you can just start doing that, um, even if it's just smiling at people where you just walk by them normally on a day-to-day basis, it's a great thing to do. And you're going to really, really feel wonderful doing that.
Absolutely. And of course, the lessons from the holiday season don't stop with simply the attitude of the holidays. And it is hard to maintain that attitude 12 months a year. But if you follow what you're doing and you create processes, now what do processes have to do with the holidays? Well, think about what you do on the holidays, your holiday traditions, the recipes that you make, the people you see. Those traditions are processes. Why do they make you feel good? Because it's the same thing every year. You look forward to, mom's turkey dinner, or seeing the family, or the traditional football game. Whatever it is, it's the same thing, and you look forward to it year after year. Well, making that happen is a process, and businesses use processes all the time. And this is a great way to understand why. Because think how good you feel when you have that tradition happen. And think how disappointed you are when something interrupts that tradition and something happens that you don't get to do it. You don't get to go home for the holidays or see certain people for the holidays, or there's something different about the dinner that doesn't work quite right. Those processes are how a business gives this feeling to its customers. Customers want to have that same great feeling every time they deal with you. So how do you do that? Is you create a process to create those feelings. And when you do the same thing over and over again, and you have the recipe for that outcome written down so that no matter who in your company is doing it, it comes out exactly the same way, you're giving that feeling to your customers. They want to come back to you because they know every time they do, they get that same great feeling. And it's the same way you feel about your holiday traditions that they can feel about your business.
Yeah, when people this time of year, they ask other people, "What are you doing for the holidays?" And most of the time, people are going to get nostalgic about what they've done in the past, maybe because they're not doing it anymore, or because they're looking forward to doing it every year. But for your business, you are feeling really good about successes that you've had in the past. And as you are saying, if you could sit down with yourself and with your fellow employees and your clients and whoever and find out what makes them happy, the things that you've done, and so on and so forth that have worked out for you, and write these things down, write down these processes, and have them on paper so that you can do them over and over and over again. This is a great time of year to do some reflection, self analysis on your business, just like it is when you're reflecting upon this year and what you're grateful for. So that's a fantastic analogy, is to look at the processes in business just like you do when you're looking at processes that make you happy, the holidays being one of them.
Right. And it's a great time of year to do that. I mean, yes, we're all busy with our personal lives going about our holiday business. But remember that right after Christmas comes New Year's. And it's a great time to give yourself that fresh start.
Absolutely. I had found we were just discussing this before because obviously this is, how do you feel gratitude for the holidays? What are you learning from the holidays and so on and so forth? There's lots of things you can do. So obviously I like to go online and look things up. And I came across an article called The Financial Lessons That You Can Learn from Classic Holiday Movies. And what they did was they listed 10 movies, a lot of which we know, some of which maybe you haven't heard of. And they list the title and then what the lesson is, and then they explain things. And the first movie on the list was called Jingle All Your Way, which came out in 1996. And the lesson from this is your kids crave your time and not expensive toys. And in this movie, it said should be required viewing for Black Friday shoppers everywhere. The main character, Howard, is played by Arnold Schwarzenegger, and he decides to make up for spending too much time at work by buying his son the year's most popular toy, the coveted Turbo Man action figure. Does that sound familiar, parents
It,
out there?
it does.
Suffering through an array of horrible Christmas Eve shopping misadventures to find the toy, Howard finally realizes that he, and not Turbo Man, is the hero his son truly longs for. And those of you who are caught up in your day-to-day life and so on and so forth, and you can't find time to spend with your kids or even kids with your parents, the bottom line is the most precious commodity you can give to your loved one is your time. So it's a fantastic lesson. Kids crave your time, not expensive toys.
Absolutely. And I think it's very important to remember that in reverse as well. As we're getting older, our parents are getting older. If you still have them, they want to spend time with you. Spend time with them. You're not going to have them forever. Take advantage of the time you have.
Absolutely. I found a funny one that does pertain to business lessons that you can learn, and it's called The Santa Claus. And this was a movie where Santa Claus, uh, it's Tim Allen is the main character in there, and the lesson from this one is always read the fine print. And the way this story goes, in the 1990s, businessman Scott Calvin, who was played by Tim, accidentally kills the actual Santa Claus. Following directions on St. Nick's business card, Scott puts on the Santa suit, gets whisked off to the North Pole, but what he doesn't realize is that the business card has a legally binding clause on it written in tiny print. In fact, he has entered into an unbreakable agreement to become the next Santa Claus for life. It, I don't remember watching the movie for a long, long time, but I do remember that it was pretty hysterical. But always reading the fine print uh, is a good lesson to learn on the business side of things.
Absolutely. And let's face it, in real life, not reading the fine print can get you into a lot more trouble than simply becoming Santa Claus.
This is true.
So what else do you have on the list?
Let's see. Home Alone. We all remember that Macaulay Culkin back in 1990. The lesson from this one is never underestimate the value of protecting your assets. And as you remember, this is something I love watching this movie. It chronicles the adventures of a young boy named Kevin who finds himself accidentally left behind while his whole family goes on their holiday vacation. Remember that? They're on the plane and they're heading out there, and Kevin, he's not there. But Kevin is alone in the house, and he's forced to defend his home against two burglars by setting a series of ingenious booby traps. And those are just, it's so fun to watch those. And it's all kinds of slapstick where he's clobbering these guys with just his really, really great wit. And the 1990 film has a lot to say about remembering what's important, such as if you have a mansion, you need a good home security system, and that you should never get caught up in your holiday plans so much that you forget your 8-year-old.
Absolutely. That was actually the one thing that always confused me about that movie. Because anybody who actually has an 8-year-old knows just how loud and rambunctious they are. How could you ever forget that if you have them or not?
Yeah, but I mean, this sets it up great where you could actually figure out that they are because You know that the hustle bustle at the beginning, and it's it's just multiple families going on vacation together. It's like 15 of them or whatever there are, and everybody's going crazy, and the kids are driving the parents crazy, and vice versa. And all of a sudden, everybody's just shuffling out, and so on and so forth. And I guess they did a count and missed something or whatever, or he's in
Right.
the other car. Don't worry about it, type thing. So I mean, it is so believable because it's so funny the way that the whole thing was set up. But you're right. I mean, obviously, it really goes back to time is the most important thing, and this is time spent with your kids and so on and so forth. So I guess it behooves you to make sure that they're with you.
Absolutely. It also goes back to what we were saying about processes. When you've got that checklist and you've got, make sure you've got all your kids with you, check that off and make sure you've got them.
Yep. And actually, this one was the sequel actually was a pretty good one too, because the Home Alone where he ended up in New York City instead of Chicago was a pretty good sequel to that. Same kind of type of scenario, same plot, and the whole 9 yards. But it was pretty funny. Getting back to a real traditional one, A Christmas Carol, the story of Scrooge, and the lesson here, which is so apropos, is that money can't buy happiness. And no matter how many times you've watched this, no matter how many people you've seen play Ebenezer Scrooge or been lucky enough to go out and see it on the stage, it teaches a timeless lesson about greed. And I'm sure most of you, 99%, have seen this, but the story goes is that Scrooge, um, he shuts out Christmas. He refuses to help the poor. He's lonely, and he's visited by ghosts of Christmas past, present, and future, whom show him the things that he's missed out on because of his relentless greed. And this ghost was promised to him by his former partner who died several years ago and came and appeared to him as a ghost saying, you're going to get visited tonight because you have a chance. I can't be saved, and that kind of thing. And Scrooge at the beginning saying, "Oh, can we just forget about this and whatever?" And he goes through the three ghosts, and some of the performances of this are a little bit more witty and fun than the others. But the bottom line is, he finally changes around at the end when he's threatened, and he looks ahead and sees himself as dead with the chains on that his former partner has on, and he all of a sudden becomes 180 degrees turned around. And he did realize that when he was younger, he did have some of this happiness and kindness in him too. And he's given a second chance. And you remember at the end of the movie that he's buying the fatted turkey for his person who works for him, and he's like the life of the party here and there and whatever. And it's just such a great, fun turnaround, as it is in all of our lives. I mean, all of us, I think, have had people in our lives who may have had problems and have turned things around, and you just feel nothing but happiness for them by seeing that happen. So the moral of the story is that if you can get that in yourself and help out these people this time of year and all year when they're feeling down, or maybe if it's in the business world, help out people out there with your advice and your expertise and so on and so forth, unsolicited, like we talked about before. It's just a great thing to do. But the bottom line is, money does not buy happiness. There's a whole lot more to happiness, and money is really the result of it, and it's not the source of it.
Right. And A Christmas Carol is such a classic. It's been told so many different times in so many different ways. And if you really want to see a great version of it that actually Scrooge is a more modern day businessman, my favorite version of A Christmas Carol is actually Scrooged starring Bill Murray.
Hmm.
It is absolutely hysterical. It's the same classic story told as only Bill Murray can do it.
He is amazing. Yeah, I don't think Caddyshack fits into this today, but that was pretty funny
No.
too. Yeah, anything that Bill Murray did is just such a wonderful thing. And actually, that brings up a movie that is not on the list, but it's the first one that I thought of, and it's all about the Grinch. And we've watched it on TV, The Grinch Who Stole Christmas, and so on. Then that was made into a movie with another crazy guy like Bill Murray named Jim Carrey, who played the Grinch in The Grinch Who Stole Christmas. But it's the same thing. It's that there are people out there who may seem bad on the surface and so on and so forth, but there is goodness, and everybody has a heart. And at the end of the Grinch, you saw the Grinch's heart after he stole everybody's presents in Whoville. Um, all of a sudden he hears the singing and Christmas goes on as normal without presents and toys and whatever. And he couldn't believe it. And all of a sudden his heart grew, Dr. Seuss's language, not one time, not 10 times, but 10 times, 10 times bigger. And you see all the graphics and all that. And it's just such a wonderful story. And the moral of the story there is that there is good in everybody. And if you can bring it out of them, that's fantastic. And that's what all the Who's and Whoville did to the Grinch.
Right. Again, it's another classic story. Um, I think the original animated version is the best version of that, with Boris Karloff as the voice of the Grinch. But it really does show that, yes, people aren't born this way. Something had to happen to them to make them appear as this, grouch, this rotten person. And all it takes is somebody else to start caring to reverse that process. And while technically not a Christmas holiday movie, it is still a holiday movie. We're just talking about Bill Murray. It's the same lesson you see in Groundhog Day, where he has to relive the same day over and over again until he learns not to be a grouch and to care for other people, and to genuinely care, not just do something good in the expectation that he's going to get something in return, but how to be selfless.
Yeah, it's a great movie. Let's see, there's an old classic called "It's a Wonderful Life,"
Yeah.
and this is the moral of the story here. The lesson is your value isn't measured by your bank balance. So if you talked a little bit about before, this is about 1946. It's Jimmy Stewart, who's George Bailey, contemplating committing suicide on Christmas Eve. Faced with all of his business transactions going horribly wrong, he decides everybody would be better off if he ended it all. But his guardian angel comes in. George changes his mind and ultimately discovers that his friends and family have got his back no matter what. So if your finances ever get you down, remember the words of George's angel Clarence: no man is a failure who has friends. And it's just another way to kind of reinforce what we've been talking about.
Right. And I think, the lesson from that movie also, even more than the bank account, when George's guardian angel shows him what life would have been like had he not existed, he makes the point of how many people and how many lives George has touched and affected. And that's something that we all have to realize, is that, no matter what we're doing, we have an effect on other people, and other people have effects on us. And it's this huge tapestry that when you pull one string out, the entire thing unravels. So think about all of the people that you have affected and all the people you will affect. And when you're thinking about that, it's like, how are you going to affect them? Are you going to, be short-sighted and selfish and just forget about that tapestry? Or are you going to make that tapestry stronger by thinking about someone other than yourself?
Yeah, and again, it really goes back to looking in the mirror and realizing the awesome person that you are. It's doing a self-assessment, not getting hepped up on what other people may think about you, because you can't control that kind of thing. So the bottom line is everybody's got to realize that we're all part of something that's really, really powerful and very, very wonderful, and yet we're all unique with our own talents. And that's the thing that really has to be emphasized for everybody. Everybody is worth a whole lot more than they think they are when they're down. And if you can kind of twist things around and work on your gratitude journal every day and your victory log and things that we've talked about, so that you can reinforce yourself with that, that's a fantastic thing to do. So,
Right. It's so important to remember that you have value. And it doesn't matter if you're rich or poor or what your circumstances are. You have value and you affect people. And that matters.
It does. And actually kind of parlays very, very well into a movie whose lesson is maintaining a positive outlook can help you reach your goals. Yes, this is another Saturday Night Live character, Will Ferrell, alias Elf. And what this is all about, it's a hilarious tale of an oversized Christmas elf named Buddy who goes on a quest from the North Pole to find his human birth father. His dad rejects him at first, but Buddy refuses to lose his enthusiasm for life. I forget his dad was a really, really famous actor, George Allen.
I think it was James Caan.
James Caan, that's right. James Caan was his father, and it was really funny going into the apartment store, into the board meetings as this big elf who's taller than everybody there and sitting on people's laps and stuff like that. But ultimately, his father comes around and starts a successful publishing company with a best-selling book about Buddy's adventures to find him. So just imagine how an upbeat attitude like Buddy's could help you with opening a new business or getting out of debt. Obviously, it's very, very extreme. Obviously, the reason that my wife and I watched it is because our sons wanted to watch it with us when they were in their 20s. That's the first time we watched it. But there really is a lesson to be learned out of it, and Will Ferrell does a fantastic job as far as acting this thing out. You got to be in the mood to do that. This is a great movie to watch with a whole bunch of people because you're just going to remember new things every single time that you watch it and come up a little, oh, he's doing this now type thing. But again, the lesson, maintaining a positive outlook, can help you reach your goals, and that's what pushed him through the whole movie from point A to point B in a very, very entertaining way.
Absolutely. It's a hysterical movie with a great message. As you know, all of these movies we've talked about have really important lessons that people can take to heart. And that's what learning from the holiday season is all about. If you can apply these lessons all year round, think about the difference it makes in your life.
Yeah, it was definitely fun going through these movies. We haven't hit on all of them, but I think the moral of the story here is if you look for lessons in everything that's out there, you're going to find them. There's a positive message in a lot of different things that go on in your life, and if you just look for it, again, it's the cup half full thing as opposed to criticizing. It's really looking at the positive things that are going on out there. So it's just a fantastic analogy, is looking at these movies and getting lessons out of them.
Absolutely. And we're just about at the end of our time. So, what's the big holiday takeaway that you want our audience to have?
Feel the gratitude that you're feeling this time of year, realizing why it's there. Take a look at the different traditions that you have in your life, put them into your business, or remember the things that you've been doing there. And the bottom line is just bottle up all the positive stuff you got going for you right now and make it a habit to keep it going all year long.
I think that's fantastic. My takeaway is that what makes you happy during the holiday season doesn't have to stop when the calendar jumps to the next year. Keep up the processes that are making people happy, the attitude that's making you happy, and think about the effects you have on people. We all affect other people. Let's make it a positive effect. You've been listening to the Success Showcase. You can catch us every week at xvadio.com/podcasts. Although this is going to be the last podcast for 2018, we will see you in the new year. And in the new year, you'll still be able to catch us at xvadio.com, as well as the Apple Podcasts app, the iTunes Store, iHeartRadio app, Spotify, and wherever you find podcasts. Remember, make this your best year ever and make next year even better. And we will see you then.